So the last time you saw me do a video on the sunken greenhouse, it was right at the end of the build portion of this whole project. So you saw me dig the hole, frame up the structure, add the doors, windows, shelving, and all of the other things that kind of make a functional greenhouse. But what you didn't see me do was garden in it for a full winter season, and that was a big disappointment of mine, especially considering all of the efforts I put into building this. So that's what I'm hoping to change this winter, and today I'm going to show you some of the changes that I've made to get ready for that. It's mostly in the growing space, a little bit in the ventilation. And so let me show you that, and then I'm going to get it planted out, and hopefully there will be many more follow-up videos after this one. The most obvious change to the growing space is in the addition of these tubs. If you remember from the last video, I used to have a shelf here that drained water down to a bucket at the end, but that shelf sat up about 4.5 inches above this level, and it kind of reduced the amount of growing space or headroom that the plants had to grow upwards. So I took that shelf off and moved it to the other side, and I added these tubs, and all of these tubs are connected by this PVC run, and this PVC will drain the water down to that bucket at the end, just like the shelf did before, but it will also allow for a little more headroom. I probably will add a piece of wood here on the front side just to keep these tubs from getting too warm, because obviously the black color will absorb some of the sun and transmit it to the soil. But I'm guessing once I get soil in here, some plant foliage and some mulch, it should be pretty good. And if you're wondering about the specifics of these tubs, they are approximately 2 feet wide by 3 feet in length, and they will give me about 8 inches of soil depth from the surface here. So once I add mulch and stuff, the plants should have plenty of soil to grow in. The other big change to the growing area, as I mentioned before, was to move the shelf that was on the high side or the north side of the greenhouse over here, and I've just placed it up there to where I can have a little bit more growing room. Obviously, I know this is not the easiest reach, but I think for small pots and different things like that and starts, it should be pretty effective. And as far as the drainage of the water, if you'll remember, all the water used to drain down to that bucket. Well, in this case, I've just let the polycarbonate lap over the edge, and the water will just drain here, land here, maybe there's other plants there, and then go down into this trough and run all the way down to the end. I'm also thinking that this might be a good space in this area because no direct sun is going to hit probably the back 7 inches of this during the middle of winter. So that might be for some of the plants that need a little less sun and just the indirect sunlight. The other change I made was to add a bit of extra ventilation. If you'll remember from the original setup, I just had this one end window, and it definitely does provide good airflow going through the ridge of the greenhouse. But I kind of felt as the greenhouse got closer to those times like in late spring and early fall, when I was trying to get more use out of the greenhouse, that more ventilation would definitely be better. So I added this smaller window just right next to it. If you're wondering why I didn't just take this one out and make one big window, I just kind of thought it would be a better option to be able to meter down how much ventilation I wanted by, say, closing one window or having both of them open. And if you're wondering, I will be putting some hardware cloth on the insides of these windows just to keep any birds or rats or anything like that from getting in here when the windows are open. And for those wondering about the cooling tube or the cooling tunnel, what is the status of that? Well, currently there is really no status. I still have it running about 100 feet out into the desert. The average depth of the top of the pipe is about 18 inches to 20 inches. I realize that is probably not sufficiently deep enough to provide the cooling action. But, you know, if somebody wants to come and help me dig, I would greatly welcome that. Other than that, I will probably just put this on hold until I can get access to a backhoe or something like that, because my ground here is just really, really bad, especially in this run. Several areas where I was drawing sparks every time I would hit it with the pick. And probably one of the most common questions that I've received in this greenhouse project is the fact that a lot of people thought this greenhouse would fill up with water or flood, which I'll tell you, if that happened, it would probably be a good thing here, because our groundwater is probably like 600 feet below or 700 feet below this location, and I would welcome the addition of water. But anyway, that's not the case. Some people thought it would fill up from the ground up from, groundwater, like, maybe a place like Mississippi. Totally understand that. And then other people thought that rain coming in through the stairs would just fill this up, at least with a few inches of water all along the bottom. And that is not the case either. This monsoon we had about 11 inches of rain in a month and a half, which by anyone's standards is a decent amount of rain, but for our standards it is a crazy amount of rain. And there was a wet spot from probably here, well, yeah, probably from here to here, where water would run down, and it was a little bit moist. It was not standing water by any means. And I guess the only explanation I can give is that you just have to imagine those stairs are a footprint. And yes, water will come down those stairs, but everything else in the greenhouse flows away from the greenhouse. So when it rains, the water flows away, and that's just simple grading of the dirt to shed the water away from draining into the greenhouse. So I don't know if that explained anything, but yes, water does come in here. Is it that big of a problem? No, it's not. Another really common question is whether I have found any rattlesnakes in the greenhouse. And the quick answer is no, I have not found any rattlesnakes, but I did see a snakeskin from what I'm guessing was a bull snake in here. And really there's only two ways for snakes to get in, through either the windows or this door. And most nights I close it up and that door fits less than a 1/4 inch from all sills, is probably closer to 1/8 of an inch. So there's really not a gap for them to come in. But obviously if I leave the door open, they can get in pretty easily. So that'll be another project, to make some sort of little mesh door that closes to keep anything like that out, but still provide some ventilation if it happens to be a warm night. Okay, so that's pretty much it for getting you up to date on the things that I've changed with the greenhouse. I went ahead and filled these tubs with some soil. I used a little bit for my garden, but then I went and got some potting mixes just so they'll drain better. I'm sure a lot of people have concerns with me only having one drain hole on these tubs. Will it adequately drain? I don't know. If it doesn't, or it seems like it's too wet, I will go ahead and put another one in. I don't think it's really that big a deal. Everything's kind of an experiment for me. But I plan on just starting seeds in these. I don't know. Maybe I'll do some kales or broccolis or whatever. But I will also do some other kind of seed things like peppers and things like that. I went ahead and got some 3 peppers and a tomato, just pots at the store, just because they were cheap. They were the last ones they had, and I kind of wanted to have something that is already growing, so I can kind of, I don't know, have a little bit more motivation when I'm coming in here versus just nothingness. And then as for the rest of the space, I'll probably just do some similar style pots like that to get some other plants started, and hopefully they will grow throughout the winter, and if they don't, hopefully they'll be ready for the spring. So I guess on the next update, it is hopefully just going to be a jungle in here. Probably not, but that's pretty much it. So as always, guys, I appreciate you watching, and we will see you next time. One more thing, I just saw the biggest damn pack rat I've ever seen in my life. Probably nose to butt, probably this big, not including the tail. So big, I think I'm gonna name him Texas. So if you follow me on Instagram, you may see a picture of Olive with Texas in her mouth becoming friends. But anyway, referencing the thing I spoke about earlier, having hardware cloth by the door, keeping the door closed, and hardware cloth on the windows, I guess I'm gonna have to do that pretty darn quick. Did you find that pack rat? You look comfy though.